Hi, and thank you for joining me. This is Andrea, and I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you so much for listening, and for those of you who have been listening for a while, listening to the videos, thank you. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate, when you make comments and feedback, and, you know, I've been loving reading, the things that you've been commenting, your experiences, your perspectives, everything. So thank you for that. Today, we have something I think is exciting. I think, some topics make for really great conversation. If you have friends that are also either on a spiritual path or maybe they're working on psychic development, I think the topic that I'm going to be talking about makes for great, just uplifting, exciting conversation. You may laugh when I tell you what it is, but okay, I was on the site Kiora. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's where you could sign up, get an account to both ask questions and also answer questions as like an expert. So you can, in the various topics, let's say you're a musician. And so maybe you sign up, get an account, and maybe the questions you're going to be answering are things that are related to music, maybe the specific instrument you play, and you because you know a lot about it, you're like the expert, so you can answer all those questions. And then maybe you also may ask questions under certain topic areas. Okay, so I've been, I don't know, a member of Kiora for I don't know how long now, probably more than a year. And I love going there sometimes. I answer questions that are related to spirituality, law of attraction, psychic development. Sometimes they're just general questions, people just, curious about how different metaphysical things work. And I love the site. It's an awesome site. And sometimes I just go there to browse what type of questions are being asked, because some of them, like I said, make for great conversation. And this is something I do sometimes. I'm on the phone with my friend and I'll be, browsing the site, and I'll be like, check out this question that was asked, and I'll read the question and we'll discuss it. And we've had so many good conversations about some of the questions that are asked. So I figured I'd do a video using one of these questions, and let's see if you enjoy this too. Okay, the question was, who are the people who keep preaching wisdom and tips but have themselves got a screwed up life? I thought, when I read the question, of course, I giggled. It really tickled me. But it's a great question. The answer is, as far as who are the people that preach wisdom and themselves have a screwed up life, pretty much all of us. I mean, that's the answer that you would get from anyone who is more interested in being truthful and honest with you, rather than giving you this there are some like spiritual teachers, coaches, who they have it set up where you know them as who they've put themselves out there to be. They've basically put out this version of themselves, and they've now don't get me wrong, they haven't put their own selves up on any pedestal or anything like that, but they've put themselves out there in a way that they give an impression, and any of us could do that by accident. I mean, somebody could say to me, well, after being a reader on your website and listening to your radio shows, listening to your videos, I had this idea that you were like this or you were like that. And a lot of people are really happy to find that I am a real person, that I deal with some of the same issues and things that the rest of you deal with. Yeah, some of us, maybe we've gotten to that point where we deal with them differently, We handle them differently, but still, we're all human. We're all still fallible, and it's okay to be fallible because we learn from everything that happens. So let's not interpret, what the person meant by screwed up life. Well, let's just say the person's basically saying you're preaching wisdom, or you're preaching how to do everything, and or how to manifest $1,000,000, but you don't have $1,000,000. What's that saying? Those who can do, those who can't teach. I can remember that saying all the way back from when I was very young, because I remember hearing my father say it a lot. I kind of feel like I grew up with that saying, and grew up with this understanding of it, and really getting what that meant. That, yeah, there are those. Look, I can use this as a really great example. There were so many times in the past, I was very interested in the arts part of my life, even though I have a computer background. Ex-IT specialist, database administration, web designer, graphic designer. Even though I did that, I also, ever since I was young, I've had one hand in the arts. So, I've done internships at theaters, I've done commercials, I've done modeling, you name it. So I've gotten that one hand in the arts, and what I think about is I've actually taken many acting classes. And the most recent one I had taken was quite a few years ago, here in Orlando. And I don't even remember the lady's name now off the top of my head. She's really cool, and her classes were great. She's actually the mother of one of the actors that's on General Hospital, the girl who plays Georgie on General Hospital. It was her mother, and actually she has two daughters who are actors, but I think Georgie's the one that is like probably doing the best now. And she, the mother, used to actually be on a soap opera ages ago too. But sometimes we come across these people who are the teachers we're relying on to get us there. And, wondering, okay, well, if they're teaching how to be channelers, how to be mediums, how to be psychic, but they aren't actually doing that, they're not working as that. Like, I can help you develop your psychic abilities, but I am not doing psychic readings anymore. I did it for a short period of time, but I'm not doing that anymore. But it's not because the person couldn't. So when this person words this question and says screwed up life, basically what I feel that they're saying is, they're being my teacher. They're being the one that's supposed to have more wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, but really, they have most of the same issues I have. Yes. It's like this. Things aren't linear. When it comes to spirituality, psychic development, things aren't linear. Things aren't in order, nicely ordered, one through whatever. So when it comes to lessons and getting our lessons in, testing and advancing, let's just say, lesson number 5 is whatever. Well, I may have done lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but not 5. Or I may have worked on number 10, whereas maybe the first lesson you worked on was number 5. So I may still have number 5 to do, even though maybe I've done all the other ones, I still got number 5 to do. It kind of works like that. We're not all working on the same lessons that go in the same order, at the same pace, Same from, and with the same type of experiences teaching us, let's just say it's chaos. It's kind of how I see it. It's just a ball of stuff that's all jumbled up. It's in no particular order. It's just kind of there. And that is how it is. It's kind of there. And there is no rhyme or reason to what somebody works on first versus last, what somebody has worked on and advanced from versus what they haven't. There is no rhyme or reason to it. So when it comes to someone, as they say, preaching their wisdom, I used to always say this. I used to always tell people, because there are a lot of people that have a goal. They're like, okay, eventually I'd like to be a spiritual coach, or I'd like to be a psychic development, teacher, or give courses. And sometimes they feel like, you hear them say like, okay, at some point or one day, or, that's what I'm trying to work towards, or when I'm ready. Well, technically, you're always ready to help someone. The reason why is because at any point where you're at in your development, there is always someone that's kind of coming up behind you that at that point you could help. For example, if you're in the 11th grade, that means you've already completed the 10th grade. Now you've moved on to the 11th grade. So aren't you ready? Couldn't you help the person who's in the 10th grade with their homework? Couldn't you assist them with the work they have to do? Of course. No, you don't have to say, I've got to wait until I go to college and get a degree before I can help a 10th grader with their homework. No. If you've completed the 10th grade successfully, and even if you haven't, even if you struggle, you're still in that position where you've completed it, at least completed it. So now you could actually help the 10th grader do what you did. So let's just say, you still consider yourself new to whatever, new to psychic development, or, metaphysics in general, new to spiritual development. Maybe you still consider yourself the way you feel, the way you look at it. Maybe you can still consider yourself to be new. Like you feel like you haven't been on the path for very long. But there are probably some things that you have learned, some understandings you have gained. And there is someone out there who is ready for what you have and what you can offer at the point where you are right now. There is really, I've heard discussions before, people talking about, a person not being ready, them, they haven't achieved this or that, and they're already teaching people, and, and I've actually heard people at a high spiritual level actually criticizing, other spiritual teachers and saying, she's not really ready, I'm more advanced than her or him, and, that's just their egos talking, and is exactly what we're talking about. Is that sometimes you'll even find that your spiritual teacher still struggles a little bit with ego at times, because ego is one of those things that, it can still sneak up on you. There is no, you're working to get control of it, but there's never any, I'm done. Now I don't have to watch my back. With ego is one of those things where you always have to be kind of looking over your shoulder, because of the way it's always ready to sneak back up on you. So it's never something that is absolutely complete. And that's what kind of trips people up sometimes. They think that once they've learned something, they've put it into practice in their life successfully, that now they can kind of stop policing themselves really toughly regarding that. No, you're never done policing yourself. You're never done watching out, keeping an eye open for what may again come to the surface. because once you've gained understanding, and it's, gone from understanding to wisdom, and you've had the lessons, and you've passed the test, and you've advanced because of it, there is no rule to saying that you won't be tested again. And this is what usually trips people up. This is where you usually a lot of times find spiritual teachers. Sometimes you see them displaying a lot of ego, and you're surprised by it maybe, and you're like, oh my goodness, I would have never guessed that they would have said that, or they would have done that, or they would have been so harsh on this person and so almost uncompassionate. No, it's not unusual at all. It can sneak up on you. Some spiritual teachers actually fall prey to the whole, this is my job. I'm meant to, put the truth out there, and to be the finger pointer of anything that's not truth. And I have the right to be harsh. If it's wrong, I have the right to be harsh. Because I'm doing it to protect other students. I'm doing it to protect people from this person. BS. They can justify it all they want to. I've heard people justify it in so many different ways. Oh, I'm not mean. I'm passionate about what I'm talking about. I'm passionate about my spirituality. I've heard that so many times. As being given as the excuse for a person being overly harsh and hurting someone. Oh, I'm just passionate about what I'm talking about. I have even in the past been told that when dealing with, other spiritual teachers and coaches and things, and when I said to them, I don't mean any harm by anything, I'm talking to you about, or I'm asking you, you're really being a little bit harsh with me. I've been told that. Oh, honey, this isn't me being harsh. Oh, honey, I'm not being mean. I'm just passionate about what. No. You have to. Don't worry. You can't worry about what that other person has going on. And you don't want to look down on it either. Because you are being given the opportunity to learn, grow, learn from your mistakes. You're being given the opportunity to have lessons through experiences in life, and to learn from them and advance from them. Everyone else has been given that same right. So even your, people that you look up to, spiritual teachers. I'm not going to name any. I could probably ramble off a few names, but I'm not going to name any. There's some that are out there that are very popular right now. And I kind of keep one eye on them just because, they do have interesting discussions and topics. So I kind of keep like one ear open for the kind of what's going on. Like when you don't watch the news really, but you check the CNN website periodically just so you know what's going on in the world. Just so you know, in case the world's supposed to come to an end tomorrow, you'll know about it. So I kind of keep one ear open. And, when there's tiffs going on between spiritual teachers very much out in the open for everybody to see, I don't really roll my eyes, shake my head, or look down on any of them for it. They're going to learn from it. I mean, we all have to learn from what we're going through. At the end of the day, just as I do, we all get to the end of the day and we say, okay, the situations and the things that I dealt with today, difficult situations, did I handle them right? Do I feel that I handled them as I was taught to by my higher self and by the angels and ascended masters and God? Do I think that I handled them correctly enough to a point where Spirit would be pleased with how I handled it. You know, if this was a test, the way I handled it, would I have passed? So at the end of the day, we should be checking ourselves like that. I mean, and it's okay if you're like, no, I didn't handle that one so great. You know, I should have handled it differently. And looking back, I should have handled it like this, or I should have just passively kept my mouth shut. You know, which was often the case for me. You know, I struggled with that for quite some time. I had a really hard time. My ego wouldn't let me keep my mouth shut. You know, and your ego sometimes has you having to have the last word, has you having to correct people, jump in there like you're everybody's teacher. And I struggled with that at one point, just like everyone else does. But some people do reach a high level and still struggle with these things, and don't judge them and think, oh, but they're the spiritual teacher and they're so popular. They've got this huge following. How could they still be suffering this? How could they still be falling prey to this? No, don't judge them. Like I said, lessons and the tests and everything that you're going to be doing, they don't go in some nice, neat order. It's not 1 through 20 and you're done. It's like 19, number 2, 20, 5. It's chaos. And in this case, chaos is correct. The way we do things, the way things work, it's not linear. It's in a chaos. Well, for us as humans, what I think of as a chaotic kind of way, because there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like I said, there's no order that makes sense. Oh, you do it 1 through 10. It's chaos. And in this sense, in this way, I'm using chaos. I'm not using chaos as a negative word. I'm not using chaos to mean something bad. I'm just using it to describe, how I see it. I can see it in my mind's eye. It's like this ball of stuff, and it's in no particular order. It's just there. It's together. And it maybe falls under lessons, experiences, and tests, and it's all jumbled up. So don't judge the spiritual teacher that falls prey to this or falls prey to that, or one day you feel like they lost it and they called out another spiritual teacher on, in public, out in the open, like literally by name, said they did this, they did that. Don't judge them for that. That happens sometimes. Don't judge them. Sit back and just watch, because even as they go through some of the tough experiences and lessons and tests, just you sitting back watching will help you, because it's basically like the student that's going to sit at the back of the classroom. They're just going to sit in on the class. Maybe they're not really taking that class, but they're going to sit in on it. And by sitting in on it and just sitting at the back of the classroom, even not participating, guess what? Some things are going to sink in. They're going to learn some things, of course, just by sitting back there and watching and listening. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to participate in it. Just watch. Even another person's lessons and experiences, you can get a lot from it, a lot out of it. Don't judge it, just learn from it. What is it? What are you seeing? What do you think it is? Do you have that issue? Have you had that experience? Have you done something similar? Is this also maybe helping you to go, wow, I've done that before, but now looking at somebody else doing it, because you know how it always is, looking from the outside in, there's that different perspective. You can do something, but literally you don't have a good view of what you're doing sometimes until you see it on someone else. You see somebody else do it, and you're like, wow, I used to do that, or I do that all the time. Oh my goodness. And now seeing it from a different perspective, you're like, oh my goodness, that's what I've been doing. That's horrible. You know what I mean? That's kind of how you feel on the inside. You're like, that's horrible. I've been doing that. And that's great. You're learning from it. So I wouldn't say that I would ever say that I wish somebody hadn't done something, because I think there's that potential for them to learn from it. There's a potential for you to learn from it, being a witness of it. So I don't think I would ever say that I wish somebody hadn't done something, even if in doing it they hurt somebody's feelings, because there was so much for everyone to learn from it. So it's not for nothing. Yeah, somebody's feelings may have gotten hurt, and somebody may be having to suffer karma for that, but it's not for nothing. We're all getting something out of it. So, someone teaching you, even if they still have a lot of flaws, even if there's still a lot they're working on, you still have to value what they're offering you, because what they're doing is they're being brave enough to, at whatever point they're at, teach you what they've already learned at least. They're willing to not wait, instead of waiting until they've learned it all. They're willing to go ahead and start sharing what they've learned thus far. And I do feel that takes a brave person to go ahead and step out there, because we know how it is. There are some people in the world that won't be too nice, and that may at sometimes judge you and judge whether or not you should be a teacher, whether or not, and there may, you know what I mean, there's going to be somebody out there waiting to judge you, and you're going to have to deal with that, and your feelings may be hurt by it, but you are the brave person if you went ahead and you're just like, I've learned some things, and I think that what I've learned can really help some people, because there's people that are dealing with some of the things I dealt with, wanting to learn some of the things I've already learned. So if you can go ahead and start sooner and kind of step out there and be willing to share your knowledge and understanding, the understanding you've so far attained, then, I consider you to be really brave, really fearless. Don't worry about the rest. I mean, I'm going to throw this out there before I finish up. Now, for those of you who have either Christian or Catholic background, you've probably heard of the story of Jesus and the washing of the feet at the Last Supper. Okay, so what that is teaching us is that sometimes you are the teacher and sometimes you are the student. Because what Jesus did at the Last Supper, they were having this Last Supper kind of like in secret. Like they were meeting and having this Last Supper in secret. They didn't want anyone to know, because there were people already looking for Jesus, right? Looking to arrest him. So they were trying to do this with a little bit of privacy. And so the people that normally would have been there to serve the food and to wash the diners' feet weren't there. And the disciples and apostles basically all sat down, and, as you can imagine, they're kind of like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Because there's normally somebody to serve, the wine. There's normally somebody to serve the food. There's normally somebody to wash our feet. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to wash our own feet? Can you imagine? They're sitting around looking at each other going, okay, so, what are we supposed to do? Do we wash our own feet? Do we, you know what I mean? There's these customs that they're so used to. And now they're like, well, what do we do? And it's kind of funny in a way because you could imagine them just all men sitting around. I'm sorry for the men listening. I know you were just like, you didn't just go there. But I'm sorry. But it's kind of funny. Strong, able-bodied men going, how are we going to figure this out? Who's going to do this? So at one point, Jesus got the wash basin, put it down on the floor, and began to wash. And forgive me, I don't remember whose feet he began to wash first. And as he did, he was talking to them and giving them this lesson, trying to explain to them by the act of doing this that sometimes you're the teacher and sometimes you're the student. You're not just always up here on this pedestal. So for those who are spiritual teachers and they're struggling with ego, sometimes they struggle with ego because they're in this position where they're like, I am the spiritual teacher. Okay, first of all, you get into trouble the moment you identify yourself as something. You get into trouble. You're no one specific thing. You are a spirit living in human existence. That period. But when you get into identifying, I am a spiritual teacher, I am in this, I am in that, that's where you start to get into trouble, is you're identify with being that. And that's where you want to be. You're putting yourself there. You're identifying, this is what I am, this is my title. And when you do that, you don't allow yourself to be able to be what you need to be at any given moment. And that is, with humility, that is what you need to do. You need to be able to be the teacher when it's time to be the teacher, and be the student when there's this opportunity and it's time to be the student. And you have to be able to recognize when it's time to be the student. Even with your own children. Sometimes we fall into that. I'm the parent. You have to listen to me. I often tell my friends, I'm like, my son Tyler, he's not allowing me to be the parent again. Or sometimes I'll say something like, yeah, Tyler allowed me to be the mommy today. But it's true. I mean, you have to literally be willing to, and be also able to recognize when it's time to be the teacher and when it's time to be the student. It's not that once you get to a certain level and you have a certain amount of understanding and wisdom, it is not that you're always the teacher. No one is ever always the teacher. Because there are going to be times when there are going to be experiences that you can learn from where you suddenly switch roles, and now no longer are you the teacher. You're the student and you're learning something. And whether it's learning from experience, whether it's learning like from a child, or maybe your own child, and maybe you're learning because maybe you're watching them as they have a play date, and you're seeing how they're interacting with each other. You're seeing how they deal with conflicts and how they're resolving it. You're seeing how one moment the kids are like, I hate you, you're not my friend anymore. And then the next second they're like, I love you, you're my best friend. Maybe it's just that you're watching this go on, and in that moment that you're watching that, guess what? You just stepped out of that role of being the teacher and you stepped into the role of being the student. Now you're learning. Or maybe you're at work and you're watching something go on between coworkers, or a coworker and a boss, and they're trying to communicate and it's not going very well. It's not going very well. This one's getting frustrated. That one's getting frustrated. You can just see the frustration, like steam coming off of them. And you're just watching. And you're like, I know what's going on. I know what's happening. I get this. I understand it. What the problem is and why that's happening. Well, you just became the student. And often what the student looks like, the student looks like the witness, the passerby. when you are just passively watching. Sometimes you're that even when you're in the situation. It could be you having a conversation with another person that's not going well, and it's just the two of you having a conversation, and you still can be that witness, that passerby, that passive person. You can do that. You can be involved in it and be passive at the same time. If you allow the other person to just, say what they need to say, allow them to speak, and you basically more be the listener, the acknowledger, rather than trying to be the teacher, the one on top, the one that's trying to win this conversation. But, think about all of the instances in your day, not just in your life, but in a day, where you had the opportunity and you flipped from the role of teacher to student. It may have been with your kids. It may have been with your significant other. It may have been with a neighbor. It may have been with a friend. It may have been in the course of just one conversation for like 20 minutes you were having with somebody, where you were either in person or on the phone with them, and you can think back about the conversation and you realize that part of the conversation you were the teacher, and part of the conversation you were the student. But you always have to be willing to allow that. So even if your goal is to become spiritual teacher, Reiki teacher, you have to be humble enough to leave that door open, to not always be the teacher, to keep your eyes open and be able to recognize when it's time to flip the role and be the student. It doesn't just make you a better person, but you don't miss out on the opportunities to learn, grow, and advance. So many people miss out on their opportunities to learn from something because they have grabbed a hold of a certain role or position, and they're basically white knuckling it. They're holding on to that role, that position so tightly, and it's ego that won't let them even let go or let ease up a little bit. You don't want to do that. You want to be flexible enough, humble enough to just be the student when you need to be that passerby, that witness, just the watcher when you need to be. Just watch it and learn from it. You don't always have to actively participate or actively try to share what you know. Many of us get to a point where we know so many things, and we could keep going and going and going with what we know. But sometimes you will learn more and you'll advance a lot better and a lot smoother if you just allow yourself to be more passive, take the back seat, let the other person go on and on and on and on. Let the other person, have the floor, and you just, passively just listen. Practice being the good listener. But the one thing I would say is just always be ready not to judge anyone, even if their action surprises you. And I think, when it comes to anyone that's in the position of like spiritual teacher, coach, life coach, those are those surprises. They can surprise you in a way because you have a certain perspective. You think, oh, well, they probably learned so much, and they probably their life every day goes smoothly. There's no chaos in their life. No. Oh, you have to allow everyone to be human. We're human. We will make mistakes, but we're supposed to. We're supposed to learn from it. And also, let me say one other thing, and I'll get more into this in another video, but when it comes to, even yourself, if you start teaching, whether it's being a Reiki teacher or spiritual teacher, psychic development teacher, sometimes people want to claim this knowledge. They want to claim knowledge. They want to claim techniques. Or they want to claim it for their teacher. They want to lay ownership to it. Oh, no, so-and-so stole this because I was talking about this, or I had written an article about this, and now they're talking about it, and they stole it from me. No one owns it. And actually, not only does no one own this information, all this information that all the teachers right now are teaching and saying, guess what? None of it's new. None of it's new. It's just, now, some of it's been lost. There are some teachings that have been lost. We know that. But none of it is new. And here's the other thing, is don't forget about that mass consciousness. Okay, if you understand oneness, then you understand that, let's say, for example, if your higher self has shared some knowledge with you, has, given you some knowledge that you now have a hold of, and you have this understanding of it, and it came from your higher self, do you think you were the only one who was given that? Because, one of the things that I used to notice a lot of times when I was writing, blog posts for my website, things that had just come to me, I'd write them, I'd finish them, and I would upload them, I'd publish them, and then I would go on sites like lightworkers.org, and to my surprise, I would see all these channelings that are discussing the same thing that I just got. And I started paying attention to it. Imagine that there's a radio station and it's broadcasting information. Anyone that tunes into that station is going to be hearing the same thing, right? They're going to be hearing that broadcast. Broadcast is going to be the same for all of us. If we tune in to that station at the same time, we're all going to hear the same thing. Well, oneness works a little bit like that. So when it comes to teachers and sometimes things that they come out with, techniques that they develop, and then they want to claim ownership of them, accuse others of stealing their ideas, whatever. There is no such thing, because first of all, none of the knowledge and understandings are new, and two, there's mass consciousness. It's absurd to believe that one teacher, even if enlightened, is getting something and no one else is getting it. That's absurd. If one person got it, many people got it. Why? Some actually got it and heard it, but some just weren't tuned into that station at the time. Some just weren't tuned in. But if one got it, I guarantee you, many, many people that are aware and open and can hear and receive also got it. So that's the one thing we don't want to do, is we don't want to claim ownership of any of this knowledge and understanding. We don't want to try to lay claim to it. Some will try to package it up and sell it as a technique. That's fine. That is fine. But not if you're going to turn on another person and say, well, hey, they got that from so-and-so. They stole that from my teacher, or they stole that from this other teacher. They got this from here. It's okay, because not just one person got that knowledge and understanding. It's absurd to think that just one person in the world has a certain understanding. It's not the case. So I just want to throw that in there. And that'll give you something to leave off with, something to think about. I really appreciate you, and I'm really thankful that you've joined me. If you're looking for me, you can find me at sherryspeaks.com, where you can find probably, I think, almost 50, 60 various attunements. Manuals are free to download. The attunements are only $2.50 if you want a personal attunement. The certificates that I have that you can order from the site, they're really, they're really nice, professional. They're only $1.25. You get them emailed to you. They're customized with your name, dates, everything, and they get emailed to you in PDF format so that you can print them out, put them in a frame, and display them. Or they're in PDF format, so you can also, of course, put them on your website if you need to. And also, of course, there's the blog there, so there's a lot of other information for you to read. If you're an empath, you can just do a search, empath or empathy. There's a lot that I've written on empathy. So if you're an empath, you'll find a lot there if you're looking to try to work with and control your empathy. If you want to contact me, just go to the website and use the contact form. I look forward to hearing from you. Feel free to comment on what I discussed. Feel free to give your 2 cents, what you think, or your perspective. Any experiences that you have, it would be great to share them, because I really feel that it does help people learn and understand more when we share our experiences. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Namaste.